I'm still stuck on the I didn't take criminal procedure statement.
Yeah,
because
I never took criminal procedure.
I think that was required when I was in law school.
Yeah, no, not criminal law was required, but not at least not like advanced criminal procedure. I took all these tax classes. I have enough tax classes to, it was crazy the amount of tax classes I took.
Host Melissa Rosenblum is one of only a few women certified by the Supreme Court of New Jersey as a criminal trial attorney. When you add kids, a booming law business, and a little black book full of subject matter experts, you've got the Mighty MERP podcast.
So I opened up the lawyer's diary and I went to the page for the Philadelphia DA's office, and here I am. What do they want with me? So I scrolled down and I saw a name under they had an economic crime unit, right? And the chief of the economic crime unit at that point in time was a guy by the name of Len Deutschman. Mm-hmm. So I picked up the phone and I called him. I said, and I remember the conversation. I thought, he's going to think I'm like crazy. Hi, my name's, Meg Horner. I'm an associate at Stradley Ronan. I'm kind of interested in becoming a TA. And he said, why don't we have lunch? I said, okay. So we met for lunch at the Reading terminal. And now, mind you, at the same time, I had actually also considered going into the FBI. I had actually gotten through fairly far in that process.
I actually could see that as well.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me.
I wanted to change. I clearly wanted to change. So I wanted to get into some sort of either prosecutor, FBI, something like that. So I have lunch with this, this gentleman, Len Deutschman, the chief of the economic crime unit at the Philadelphia DA's office. And he says, well, you called the right person because I'm actually on the hiring committee. And we're going to consider this a first interview.
Wow.
And the next interview was before a panel. Mm-hmm. And they happened to be hiring. And very quickly thereafter, I got an offer, which was 50% of what I was making at the law firm.
Well, that's why you have to be passionate about it, right?
So, right. And I mean, we had just bought a house in Philadelphia. We didn't have children, but I said to my husband, I would like to do this. And I did. I ended up making the switch. I'll also never forget the conversation I had with the partner at the time, who was very, very nice. But he's like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this?
Well, it's a big change of where you were. But
right. He asked me what I was going to be making. And I really think everybody thought I had a screw loose.
Yeah.
So I quit my job. I go to the DA's office. Okay. Now, at that point in time, they threw you right into, and of course, I can't start in the economic crime unit. They have a path to get there, and it's a 3-year path. The first year is municipal court. The second year is juvenile. The next year is waivers. And then if you've, satisfied your 3-year commitment and are on the right track, then you can ask to be moved to a specialty unit.
Correct. So that's how the public defender's office was, but we started with preliminary hearings, probable cause hearings.
Well, and that's what we did in municipal court was preliminary hearings, and then misdemeanor trials. But the bulk of the work was preliminary hearings because, as you know, Pennsylvania does not have a grand jury process. They have preliminary hearings. But those preliminary hearings are held at police districts.
Yes. Yes.
So I get my first assignment and I'm heading off to 55th and Pine to handle preliminary hearings. I'm given a giant box of files that I have to go through and prep. And, you walk into the district and it is packed. It's mobbed. And at that point in time, the municipal court judge was Seamus McCaffrey, who ended up on the PA Supreme Court. It was like something I had never seen before. And I really was out of my element and I was concerned I had made a terrible mistake. I remember going in the bathroom thinking, oh my God, like it was just unbelievable.
So
everybody's getting yelled at by the judge.
I was going to
say
like
a deli line. You're calling out names and it's just moving so quickly. Definitely different than
Yeah,
my
so
corner office up on the 32nd floor or whatever it was
oh my
at Stradley.
goodness. Oh my goodness. I had, a very similar experience, but from the defense side, because, you worked at the district attorney's office with the big box of all those cases. And I worked for the public defender's office. I had started at the public defender's office a few years before you. So we didn't actually meet in court really until I think you came to the juvenile unit. But big box of cases, there could be up to 70 cases on those preliminary hearing lists.
Right. And it wasn't like that was your only day that week in court. It was
Correct.
nonstop, 5 days a week.
I would say the only benefit that you had is you probably got yelled at a little less than the public defender's office.
Maybe a little bit. Was
Just
that your first job out of law school?
It was my first job as an attorney out of law school. While I was waiting for the bar results, I worked for a up and coming company called Market Span, which this is how long ago it was. It was going to deliver new case law to your computer via email or via a site that was pertinent to the area of law that you were practicing. And it was a startup business.
Wow.
Yes. And it was a professor of mine's husband who started the business, and I hadn't gotten a job yet. I was interviewing at the prosecutor's office in Camden and the public defender's office in Philly. And so that was my first job. But
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Jersey in Passaic County.
Okay.
And then I got married right after college. I graduated from college in May of 93, and I got married in June of 93. And my husband at the time had a job in Evesham Township as a school teacher, so we moved to the Cherry Hill area. He's from New York. I was from North Jersey. We didn't really know anyone. And I knew I was going to law school, so I applied to Rutgers, Temple, Widener, and Seton Hall. And Seton Hall was too far to commute, and I was waitlisted at Rutgers and Temple. And when I went to Widener, I really liked the campus. I just liked the professors after my first semester, so I stayed for all 3 years.
Right, and that's pretty similar to what happened to me. Waitlisted at Rutgers and Temple and ended up at Widener. And I did like Widener. I really did.
Right.
I wanted to just be closer to where I was working.
Yeah, I mean, it was a commute. But I didn't have kids. I was, relatively young. I only took a year off between college and law school. But
That's what I did.
I do remember going into those preliminary hearings at those police districts and one just being yelled at all the time by everybody in the court.
It was definitely an experience like no other. But I've stayed in touch with the attorneys that were in my class. They had, you had classes that you were in. And there were 30 attorneys in municipal court unit, and many of us have stayed in touch. There was a camaraderie like no other.
Right. Well, it was like a boot camp.
It was like boot camp. It really was. And I've stayed in touch with a number of people from that year, and we all talk about, those the days of MC.
Well, the truth of the matter, though, is that if you could handle being a Philadelphia prosecutor, district attorney, or public defender, handling that amount of cases and being able to think on your feet, and, so many of those judges, and Judge McCaffrey was one of them, that, one moment they would be so nice to you, and the next minute they'd be yelling at you.
That's 100%. And I have said that, you and I have said that before, but I have said that to younger attorneys. The worst day in New Jersey in court is nothing like some of my days in Philadelphia.
I remember saying to the law clerks, and this was a few years ago, in watching a Superior Court judge in New Jersey. It was a criminal judge who was really upset with private defense attorney who was not returning the court's calls, was not showing up for court appearances. And when it came to the day of motions, the judge at the end of the motions held the attorney in contempt and fined him like $500 and also reprimanded him in open court about being unresponsive and disrespectful and rude to the court and all of that. And the law clerks came out with their eyes wide open and like just shocked. And I looked at them and Meg, I said to them, I know that looked hard and harsh, and it was. But I'm going to tell you that is still a walk in the park compared to the way young lawyers were treated in Philadelphia.
Could have been taken into custody.
Yeah, well, I don't know about you. One time I had a judge threaten to hold me in custody in contempt of court.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a story in and of itself.
Well, I'm going to tell it because it's a good one, and I tell it to my kids. And I don't know what I did. I don't even remember the case, Meg. But the judge said to me, Miss Rosenblum Pizetzner, which was my last name at the time, Miss Rosenblum Pizetzner, if you roll your eyes in this courtroom one more time, I will hold you in contempt and put you in jail until a supervisor comes and explains why this is occurring.
Outstanding.
I have never rolled my eyes in court since that time.
You definitely heard her loud and clear, but that's a great story to tell your kids.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So you went from being at the district attorney's office, and I know you were there for a few years and had a...
Yep, I was there just about 3 years and made a decision to move back to New Jersey. And I, when we moved back, I couldn't stay in Philadelphia because there was a residency requirement for district attorneys, assistant district attorneys at that time. They don't think they have that requirement for the PDs, but they did for
They do not.
ADAs. And so I really wanted to continue being a prosecutor. I saw myself as a prosecutor, identified with being a prosecutor, and took a little bit of time, but ultimately was able to get a position as an assistant prosecutor in Cumberland County. Now, by the time my job actually started, there was a lot of red tape with budgets and pre-holders and all that kind of stuff. But by the time I actually got started, I was 5 months pregnant with my oldest. And at that point in time, my parents were still living in Bridgeton. So that was another interesting conversation. First day on the job, letting the prosecutor, Ron Casella, know that I was, pregnant and would be going out very shortly. But in any event, I only went out on maternity leave for 6 weeks and came right back and traveled from my home in Summers Point to Bridgeton for a year with my young child and my very old golden retriever, and disposited them off at my parents' house and then went over to work. And after about a year there, they sent me on a training down in Cape May Courthouse for, they needed someone to be a sexual assault prosecutor. And so they sent me to this training. And the first day of the training, I met Dave Meyer, who at that time was the first assistant in Cape May County. And I remember saying, hey, if you're ever hiring, let me know, because the drive to Bridgeton was a little bit rough for a young mom.
It's a hard drive. It's a hard drive for an old mom. I mean, right, exactly. I have to, drive there for court, and there's no easy way to get there. Is what it is.
There isn't. You just have to do it. But so, as it turned out, as fate would have it, Cape May County Prosecutor's Office was hiring, and what is interesting is that I'm told that one of the things that they really liked about my resume was the fact that I had the LLM in taxation. So I always tell people, look, you never know. I tell young people who are trying to figure out what they want to do and maybe they'll change their mind. Everything that you do in life builds upon the prior thing that you did. So there is no unwasted experience. It all, I think, makes you who you are. And For a long time, I thought, oh, what a waste. All those tax classes, the CPA, the LLM, that was such a waste of time. It wasn't a waste of time because I think it positioned me to be able to be hired as the financial crimes prosecutor in Cape May. Not that I ever really have ever used the LLM, but it was just an experience and it kind of set me apart.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mighty MERP podcast. This podcast is not a source of legal advice. No two legal cases are the same. Contact an attorney if you require legal assistance. Mighty MERP is a production of the Law Office of Melissa Rosenblum and the Niche Podcast Network.